Yeah. So the title will be, I mean, basically the Feast of Dedications, Feast of Lights, if you will. Feast of Dedications. Feast of Dedication. So, Shalom and happy Feast of Dedications. This is a day to remember the great sacrifices our forefathers undertook to continue to follow the commandments of Ahaya. More importantly, it is a day to remember how our Father delivered them from all their enemies in their times when our people came together to do His will. Here are a few of the records of the time period as well as Christ and His celebrating of the same holy day. So we're going to go into some of the records, understanding again, that this word, this book, the Holy Bible, isn't just a religious piece, or just some something used with mystical stories for gathering in a church. Or this is factual, literal history, and that's what we're going to go into and read some accounts of history. And we're also going to go into the book of the Antiquities of the Jews, which is another history book, um, with history of our people. That's actually where we're going to start. Um, so again, we're going into Feast of Dedications, getting an understanding and a history of what it is, and a holy day given to us, not that isn't just camouflaged as a holiday or holy day for the Most High, in dishonesty, but we can read about it in the scriptures and get an understanding, as this is what thus saith the Lord. Right? So we're going to start in the Antiquities of the Jews, um, book 12, chapter 7, and we'll start at paragraph 6, and we'll just pretty much just kind of read through this.
All right, this is the writings of Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, book 12, chapter 7, paragraph 6. When therefore the generals of Antiochus's armies had been beaten so often, Judas assembled the people together and told them that after these many victories, which the Most High had given them, they ought to go up to Jerusalem and purify the temple and offer the appointed sacrifices.
So knowing that the Most High was on their behalf and giving them victory in war, they said we need to go up and purify the temple and offer the appointed sacrifices to the Father. Right? Go ahead.
But as soon as he, with the whole multitude, was come to Jerusalem, and found the temple deserted, and its gates burnt down, and plants growing in the temple of their own accord, on account of its desertion, he and those that were with him began to lament, and were quite confounded at the sight of the temple. So he chose out of some of his soldiers.
So they go and see the temple deserted, um, you know, neglected, being ransacked by the other nations, and defiled, not manicured and taken care of, and it crushed them. They lamented, like we can't believe, like, the Most High is with us and doing this and taking care of us, and we've neglected, the temple, and allowed this. So they were, broken up about it. Go ahead.
And were quite confounded at the sight of the temple. So he chose out some of his soldiers, and gave them order to fight against those guards that were in the citadel, until he should have purified the temple. When therefore he had carefully purged it, and had brought in new vessels.
So he had, he set up to protect them as they went to restore the temple. The soldiers, because they were in the midst of being attacked, as we'll read and get some more accounts. But that was what was going on. So he set up some soldiers to protect, and they went to work to restore and cleanse the temple. Oh, so we're in the book of Josephus, book 12, the writings of Josephus, Antiquities of the Jews, book 12. Yep, chapter 7, and we started at paragraph 6. So yeah, that's where we at. He's preparing. We let's set up a boundary and protection of ourselves so that not that it took a high level of importance. Like we gotta address this right now. So let's get some men in place to protect while we go to work and reestablish and purify and get the temple back in order and in place. Go ahead.
When therefore he had carefully purged it, and had brought in new vessels, the candlestick, the table of showbread, and the altar of incense, which were made of gold, he hung up the veils at the gate, and added doors to them. He also took down the altar of burnt offering, and built a new one of stones that he gathered together, and not of such as were hewn with iron tools.
Can you imagine that? You know what I mean? I just like to sometimes just see this in my mind, because, this is us. This is our people. This is us working together, pulling these things together. Hey, hold that. We got to, okay, gentlemen, the men protect this. And, hey, actually literally doing these things and understanding their strength is from the Father. So go ahead.
So on the 25th day of the month Caslu, which the Macedonians call Apelians, they lighted the lamps that were on the candlestick, and offered incense upon the altar of incense, and laid the loaves upon the table of showbread, and offered burnt offerings upon the new altar of burnt offerings. Now it so fell out that these things were done on the very same day on which their divine worship had fallen off, and was reduced to a profane and common use.
Mm-hmm. So the very same day that it had fallen off, don't be confused. It's talking about the same day of the year, 3 years prior to. And it's going to clear that up as he reads. Go ahead.
And was reduced to a profane and common use after 3 years' time. For so it was that the temple was made desolate by Antiochus, and so continued for 3 years.
Mm-hmm.
This desolation happened to the temple in the 145th year, on the 25th day of the month Apelians.
You see again, this being history and directly related to Pacific date, the year, the time. Like these are accounts of history and memoirs of actual events, the wars and the reestablishing of the temple. This is actual history, true accounts. Go ahead.
On the 153rd Olympiad, but it was dedicated anew on the same day, the 25th of the month Apelians, on the 148th year, and on the 154th Olympiad. And this desolation came to pass according to the prophecy of Daniel, which was given 408 years before. For he declared that the Macedonians would dissolve that worship for some time. Now Judah celebrated the festival of the restoration of the sacrifices of the temple for 8 days, and omitted no sort of pleasures thereon, but he feasted them upon very rich and splendid sacrifices.
So you see that? Now Judah celebrated the festival of the restoration. So they celebrating the restoring of the temple for them to be able to sacrifice and deal with their power, the Most High, for 8 days, and omitted no sort of pleasure thereon. But he feasted them upon very rich and splendid sacrifices. So, back to kind of what I was mentioning with, having a holy convocation and a feast and celebrating and having a good time. That's what we read. Like they held nothing back, and they had the most splendid of sacrifices. They were eating good and, really celebrating and had a good time. And he honored God. That's what it goes on to say. And delighted them by hymns and psalms. They were singing. You see, they delight in God while having a good time. You can have a good time in the Most High. We can do that. That's what we gonna do. That's what we're gonna start. We've been doing it. Don't get it wrong. We've been doing it, but I want to make sure that we really, can make these events and fun where the kids can come in and be like, man, you remember dedication? Still talking about it weeks later, like, and that's on their tongue, and they talking about that stuff because that's what we had fun. We had something for them to do. They took something home, remembering it and all that stuff. So that's what we're reading right here. Read that again.
And he but he feasted them upon very rich and splendid sacrifices, and he honored the Most High, and delighted them by hymns and psalms. Nay, they were so very glad at the revival of their customs, when after a long time of intermission.
That's us, Same, after being so lost all this time, they're, understanding how much with the gravity of returning to him and dealing with not only in our obedience day to day, but these holy days. Like they are things of remembrance and things that draw us back and give us more clarity and understanding to our cultures. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like they were returning back to our culture. This is our culture. The things that were taken from us to where now we running around bumping our head on brick walls and don't know who we are, what we're supposed to do, or what's going on. We think we're supposed to be imbeciles and fools and, trying to figure out what the next dance move is going to be, acting like, you know what I mean? That's not, we royal people. That's what we read, and they like, yo, get this back in place. This is us. We deal with the Most High. Like, that's us. That's what these holy days are. That's what we supposed to be feeling like and doing. When we deal right here in this small little gathering, the Most High is with us. He see us, and we dealing straight with him. So we got to be like, yo, we going to have the splendid sacrifice. We going to burn something up on this grill that you ain't, I'm going to whip up this. Hey, sister, can you make them that salad? You know what I mean? Like, I remember, hey, what about them potatoes? Who going to get, yeah, we going to have that. We going to have them. We going to give it up for the Most High. Give it up for him. We're going to have fun. We returning to us. This is us. And this is what we're going to grow in and strengthen in as we move forward and grow into these times and these perilous times. We got to grow and return day by day and year by year and holy day by holy day to the Most High and give him what's his and raise up this next generation to where they not even, it's not a, this is, they understand that. I know what they did. Yeah. Couple 2-3 years of Feast of Dedications, and you know what? They understand it more than we do. They like, oh yeah, that's the dedication to the back. We got back to the Most High and get the temple, and we would, all of that. It's it's important. All right, go ahead.
Nay, they were so very glad at the revival of their customs, when after a long time of intermission, they unexpectedly had regained the freedom of their worship. That they made it a law for their posterity, that they should keep a festival on account of the restoration of their temple worship.
Check it out. Here we go again. The restoration. Remember that remembering. That's the holy days are always reflective of remembering. And you see how this was established as a law to remember. It's not something to take light to actually have an opportunity and an understanding to worship the Most High. After a long intermission, they unexpectedly had regained the freedom of their worship, that they made it law, that they should keep a festival on account of the restoration of their temple worship for 8 days. Go ahead.
And from that time to this, we celebrate this festival and call it lights. I suppose the reason was because this liberty beyond our hopes appeared to us.
Right.
And that thence was the name given to that festival.
So, that lights, saying like, it brought a light on something that they didn't even foresee coming. That this was returned back to them. Man, can you imagine that joy of walking in, seeing the temple desolate? Like, man, look what the Most High is doing for us. Like, because they dealing with the Most High at this point. They strong and with him because the Most High is carrying them. And we're going to read some accounts. They are, nobody can deal with them. People are they're being targeted. This seed in the earth that is, and these different the strangers in different nations are coming against them, but the Most High is holding them down. And then they go and see that, and they dealing with the Most High. They understand that's their power. They go and see the temple like, what? They got, they was doing all kind of foul things to the temple, sacrificing swine and all these. So they seeing on, and they're like, no, hold up, set up a fortress around this. We about to address this right now. And so they got it done, and they like, they celebrated so hard they put it in the law like. For going forward, we got to remember and understand the importance of being able to have a temple and deal with the Most High. So that's the Feast of Dedications, starting today, 8 days. Understanding and appreciating the opportunity to deal with the Most High. And us, I'll kind of get into it, maybe the little, I want to finish reading and get some of the history, but understanding as well, we are now that temple, rededicating and cleaning up all that mess and being able to re-establish and present and sacrifice ourselves, being that sacrifice to the Father. We didn't quite finish that, did we?
No.
Okay.
Judas also rebuilt the walls round about the city and reared towers of great height against the incursions of enemies and set guards therein. He also fortified the city Bethsura, that it might serve as a citadel against any distress that might come from our enemies.
All right, man. So we're going to go on and read another account in Maccabees. And your Apocrypha, First Maccabees, and we'll go to chapter 4, and we'll start reading at the first verse. First Maccabees 4, and we'll start at 1.
First Maccabees chapter 4, verse 1. Then took Gorgias 5,000 footmen and 1,000 of the best horsemen, and removed out of the camp by night, to the end that he might rush in upon the camp of the Jews.
Okay, so he's preparing to rush in on the Jews, right? Go ahead.
And smite them suddenly. And the men of the fortress were his guides. Now when Judas heard thereof, he himself removed, and the valiant men with him, that he might smite the king's army which was at Emmaus.
So he had, was privy to this and was able to kind of prepare beforehand. We were. Go ahead.
While as yet the forces were dispersed from the camp. In the mean season came Gorgias by night into the camp of Judas. And when he found no man there, he sought them in the mountains. Mm-hmm. For said he, these fellows flee from us.
So he was going to sneak attack. We became privy to what was going on and were able to prepare. And so they said they we weren't there. They flee from us. Go ahead, verse 6.
But as soon as it was day, Judas showed himself in the plain with 3,000 men, who nevertheless had neither armor nor swords to their minds. And they saw the camp of the heathen, that it was strong and well harnessed, and compassed round about with horsemen, and these were expert at war.
Mm-hmm. So there was a grand army that we were up against. Go ahead.
Verse 8. Then said Judas to the men that were with him, fear ye not their multitude, neither be ye afraid of their assault. Remember how our fathers were delivered in the Red Sea, when Pharaoh pursued them with an army.
Yeah, you see who they leaning on, right? He didn't say, you know what kind of metal we use on our spears? You know what kind of training we went through? They talking about the Most High. They like, you remember, our Father don't play. Look what he done brought us through. We with him. Don't worry. Go ahead.
Verse 10. Now therefore let us cry unto heaven, if peradventure the Most High will have mercy upon us. Mm-hmm. And remember the covenant of our fathers.
Yeah.
And destroy this host before our face this day. Mm-hmm. That so all the heathen may know that there is one who delivereth, and saveth Israel.
Mm-hmm.
When the strangers lifted up their eyes and saw them coming over against them, wherefore they went out of the camp to battle. But they that were with Judas sounded their trumpets. So they joined battle, and the heathen being discomfited fled into the plain.
So they had a plan of action. They sounded a trumpet, and some other formation or another group unseen popped in from the side or something. And they like, whoa, what's going on?
Yeah.
And they took up and tried to flee.
Verse 14. So they joined battle, and the heathen being discomfited fled into the plain. Howbeit all the hindmost of them were slain with the sword, for they pursued them unto Gazera, and unto the plains of Idumea, and Azotus, and Jahimini.
Ran them all the way up out of there. Like, chased them all through all this. Go ahead.
So that they were slain of them upon 3,000 men. This done, Judas returned again with his host from pursuing them, and said to the people, Be not greedy of the spoils, and as much as there is a battle before us.
Mm-hmm. So don't go overboard. There's a battle before us. Go ahead.
And Georgius and his host are here by us in the mountain. But stand ye now against our enemies and overcome them. And after this ye may boldly take the spoils.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 19. As Judas was yet speaking these words, there appeared a part of them looking out of the mountain, who when they perceived that the Jews had put their host to flight, and were burning the tents, for the smoke that was seen declared what was done. When therefore they perceived these things, they were sore afraid, and seeing also the host of Judas in the plain ready to fight.
So they, the Most High is giving them a spirit of fear just from looking off afar. They like, man, look what they just did to an army already. They burn, they seeing the smoke from the tents burning. And so now they sitting back when they done came ready and prepared to try to take us down. They looking back and trembling before even doing or approaching or doing anything. They like, man, look what they did. There's a sign of their victory. They burning everything and taking it a spoil. And look at all their men down there. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 22. They fled every one into the land of strangers. Then Judas returned to spoil the tents, where they got much gold and silver, and blue silk, and purple of the sea, and great riches. After this they went home, and sung a song of thanksgiving, and praised the Most High in heaven, because it is good, because his mercy endureth forever. Thus Israel had a great deliverance that day. Now all the strangers that had escaped came and told Lysias what had happened, who, when he heard thereof, was confounded and discouraged, because neither such things as he would were done unto Israel, nor such things as the king commanded him were come to pass.
So yeah, he gets the word and he's like, nothing that I needed done or was sent out this army to do was done. So, he's a little, confused and upset. Go ahead.
Verse 28. The next year, therefore, following Lysias gathered together 70,000 choice men afoot, and 5,000 horsemen, that he might subdue them. So they came into Idumea, and pitched their tents at Bethsura, and Judas met them with 10,000 men. And when he saw that mighty army, he prayed and said, Blessed art thou, O Savior of Israel, who didst quell the violence of the mighty man by the hand of thy servant David, and gavest the host of strangers into the hands of Jonathan, the son of Saul, and his armor bearer. Shut up this army in the hand of thy people Israel, and let them be confounded in their power and horsemen. Make them to be of no courage, and cause the boldness of their strength to fall away, and let them quake at their destruction. Cast them down with swords of them that love thee, and let all those that know thy name praise thee with thanksgiving. So they joined battle, and there were slain of the host of Lysias about 5,000 men. Even before them were they slain. Now when Lysias saw his army put to flight, and the manliness of Judas' soldiers, and how they were ready either to live or die valiantly, he went into Antiochia, and gathered together a company of strangers, And having made his army greater than it was, he purposed to come again into Judea.
Mm-hmm.
Then said Judas and his brethren, Behold, our enemies are discomfited. Let us go up to cleanse and dedicate the sanctuary. Upon this all the host assembled themselves together and went up into Mount Sion. And when they saw the sanctuary desolate, and the altar profaned, and the gates burnt up, and the shrubs growing in the courts as in a forest, or in one of the mountains, yea, and the priest chambers pulled down, they rent their clothes, and made great lamentation, and cast ashes upon their heads.
So you see, we have two separate accounts here that line up. History. This is history. This is true accounts in our history and us as a people. This is our history. This is our book, right? This is concerning us. So here they are again, lamenting and, with their heads down and renting their clothes because of their temple and their chambers being all torn to asunder and desolate, right? Go ahead.
Verse 40, and fell down flat to the ground upon their faces and blew an alarm with the trumpets and cried toward heaven. Then Judas appointed certain men to fight against those that were in the fortress until he had cleansed the sanctuary. So he chose priests of blameless conversation, such as had pleasure in the law, who cleansed the sanctuary and bare out the defiled stones into an unclean place.
Mm-hmm.
And when as they consulted what to do with the altar of burnt offerings, which was profane, they thought it best to pull it down, lest it should be a reproach to them, because the heathen had defiled it. Wherefore they pulled it down, and laid upon the stones in the mountain of the temple in a convenient place, until there should come a prophet to show what should be done with them. Then they took whole stones according to the law, and built a new altar according to the former, and made up the sanctuary, and the things that were within the temple, and hollowed the courts. They made also new holy vessels, and into the temple they brought the candlestick, and the altar of burnt offerings, and of incense, and the table.
Mm-hmm.
And upon the altar they burnt incense, and the lamps that were upon the candlestick they lighted, that they might give light into the temple. Furthermore, they set the loaves upon the table, and spread out the veils, and finished all the works which they had begun to make. Now on the 25th day of the 9th month, which is called the month of Caslu, in the 148th year, they rose up betimes in the morning, and offered sacrifice according to the law upon the new altar of burnt offerings, which they had made.
Mm-hmm.
Look at what time and what day the heathen had profounded it. Even in that was it dedicated with songs and citherns and harps and cymbals.
Mm-hmm.
Then all the people fell upon their faces, worshiping and praising the Most High of heaven, who had given them good success.
Mm-hmm.
And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days.
One thing I just want to keep pointing out is we see the how the Most High is with them and with us when we are, and how they are dealing with a level of obedience to the Most High. They're not. We're not reading of instances of them being a rebellious people or disobedience or reveling and all. We keep these accounts coincide with the Most High being our strength and power as we as a people to the Most High are obedient and deal with Him. You see, we woke up betimes in the morning like they with the Most High and dealt with the sacrifice. Like, they were in link and in tune with the Father. That's important. That's the key to us understanding and tapping into and dealing with the power of our God. Our obedience, not just us dealing any kind of way. Just I'm Hebrew, so it's just hey, I got the information. I know I'm a Hebrew. That's not it. Like, we gotta deal with some obedience. Like, All right, go ahead.
Verse 56. And so they kept the dedication of the altar 8 days, and offered burnt offerings with gladness, and sacrificed the sacrifice of deliverance and praise. They decked also the forefront of the temple with crowns of gold and with shields.
That was what you were speaking on Wednesday, right?
Mhm.
Some of the ideas of how they kind of decorated with crowns of gold and with shields, right?
And the gates and the chambers they renewed, and hanged doors upon them. Thus was there very great gladness among the people, for that the reproach of the heathen was put away. Verse 59. Moreover, Judas and his brethren, with the whole congregation of Israel, ordained that the days of the dedication of the altar should be kept in their season, from year to year by the space of 8 days, from the 25th day of the month Caslu, with mirth and gladness. At that time also they built up the Mount Sion with high walls and strong towers round about, lest the Gentiles should come and tread it down, as they had done before. And they set there a garrison to keep it, and fortified Bethsura to preserve it, that the people might have a defense against Idumea.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely beautiful. This is a perfect example of what we can do as a nation in the spirit of the Most High if we come together to do His will.
That's right.
Right? I mean, the Father is going to move on our behalf in ways of this manner and greater with time to come. But we have to, learn how to come together. Like we spoke on the communion, making sure we dealing with each other in love and obedience and dealing, all those things. We have to be able to come together as a unit so that the Most High can work on our behalf. Our people were oppressed on all sides, yet they were able to rebuild and fortify strongholds in a time of weakness and outright hatred for our seed. Here is such example of outright perverse cruelty, which also occurred in the time of the Maccabees. So we're going to just read of some more of the cruelties and an instance that took place in the time of the Maccabees as well. So we're going to stay there in the Maccabees, but we're going to go to 2nd Maccabees, the 7th chapter, and start at the first verse. 2nd Maccabees 7 and 1.
Second Maccabees chapter 7, verse 1. It came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips. But one of them that spake first said thus.
So read that again. Verse 1, start at the top.
It came to pass also that 7 brethren with their mother were taken and compelled by the king against the law to taste swine's flesh, and were tormented with scourges and whips.
So they're being tormented by the king, by those in power, because he has these 7 brothers and their mother who have, have dedicated themselves to the Most High and to the laws of the Most High, and so he wants to torment and with scourges and whips because they won't break the law and partake in swine's flesh. Right? This is the pride of those, that stand in high places and against those looking to, deal in obedience to the Father. Go it right. So here we are, verse 2.
But one of them that spake first said thus, What wouldest thou ask or learn of us? We are ready to die, rather than to transgress the laws of our father. Then the king, being in a rage, commanded pans and cauldrons to be made hot, which forthwith being heated, he commanded to cut out the tongue of him that spake first, and to cut off the utmost parts of his body, the rest of his brethren and his mother looking on. Now when he was thus maimed, and all his members, he commanded him, being yet alive, to be brought to the fire, and to be fried in the pan. And as the vapor of the pan was for a good space dispersed, they exhorted one another with the mother to die manfully, saying thus, The Lord God looketh upon us, and in truth has comfort in us, as Moses in his song which witnessed to their faces, declared, saying, and he shall be comforted in his servants. So when the first was dead after this manner, they brought the second to make him a mocking stock. And when they had pulled off the skin of his hand with the hair, they asked him, wilt thou eat before thou be punished throughout every member of thy body? But he answered in his own language and said, no. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order, as the former did. And
Man, so we look at this, and this is gruesome. You know what I mean? But I mean, when you I could see these brothers, like when and understand, that the Most High is real, and that this is a temporary state and place in our physical body. They like, man, you have no idea what you're doing. That's what they looking at this king like. You think you really doing something? You the one gonna have to deal, and and have to deal with a level of judgment for what you doing to the Most High's people. I know my Father has a kingdom for me, so whatever you gonna do, go ahead and do it. You think I'm gonna set aside this truth and understanding concerning the Most High and what He has for me, so I can deal with some flesh and partake in what your kingdom is? Because as we read here, the king starts to offer him more. He's like, "How? What's up with these guys? They not going. I'm the king." Like, and he starts trying to give them, position and everything, tempting them with the things of this world. When these brothers know and they standing tight, 7 brothers strong, like, yo, man, we know what's up. We deal with the Most High. Whatever He gonna have to do, we'll sing about it on the other side. Like the Most High, matter of fact, He's storing up some riches for us right now. He giving us an opportunity to just, set things off for when we in the kingdom. So whatever you got to do, like I'm cool. I don't want no part of what you dealing with. That's what we reading, and these brothers stood strong.
I read a precept on that. What you just said.
Yeah.
Revelations chapter 20, verse 4. And I saw thrones, and they sat upon them, and judgment was given unto them. And I saw the souls of them that were beheaded for the witness of Yeshua, and for the word of the Most High, and which had not worshipped the beast, neither his image, neither had received his mark upon their foreheads,
right,
or in their hands. And they lived and reigned with Christ 1,000 years.
You know what I'm saying? That's what these brothers knew. It's like, man, really? They looking at this king like, you silly. Some swamp, your little petty, whatever you got dealing with this little situation. Yo, man, you the one better need to figure out what you gonna do, because you tripping. Yeah. You messing with the Most High's people right here, man. Right? Go ahead.
Verse 8. But he answered in his own language and said, no. Wherefore he also received the next torment in order, as the former did. And when he was at the last gasp, he said, thou like a fury takest us out of this present life, but the King of the world shall rise us up, who have died for his laws, unto everlasting life.
Man, we dying for his law, man. They like, yo, He gonna raise us up. We dying for His law. Right? Hey, go ahead.
Verse 10. After him was the third made a mocking stock. And when he was required, he put out his tongue. And that right soon, holding forth his hand manfully. And said courageously, these I had from heaven. And for his laws I despise them. And from him I hope to receive them again.
Right.
And so much that the king and they that were with him marveled at the young man's courage, for that he nothing regarded the pains. Now when this man was dead also, they tormented and mangled the fourth in like manner. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, it is good, being put to death by men, to look for hope from the Most High to be raised up again by him.
Imagine him telling him that, like, man, come on. Like, you think you're doing something? And that's what's getting this king even more like, hey, get another scalpel and what else we got? Like, let's figure it. These dudes is like, yo, man, come on, man. You the one, They like, here, take my tongue, my arms, Come on, whatever you got to do. Go ahead.
As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life.
Mm.
Afterward, they brought the.
Where were you at?
Verse 14.
Read that
Read it
whole
again.
Yeah.
Verse 14. So when he was ready to die, he said thus, it is good being put to death by men, to look for hope from the Most High to be raised up again by him. As for thee, thou shalt have no resurrection to life. Verse 15. Afterward they brought the fifth also and mangled him. They looked he unto the king and said, thou hast power over men. Thou art corruptible. Thou doest what thou wilt. Yet think not that our nation is forsaken of the Most High.
Mm-hmm.
Man, praise the Father.
Man.
Verse 17. But abide a while, and hold his great power, how he will torment thee and thy seed.
Mm-hmm.
After him also they brought the sixth, who being ready to die said, be not deceived without cause, for we suffer these things for ourselves, having sinned against our power. Therefore, marvelous things are done unto us. But think not thou that takest in hand to strive against the Most High, that thou shalt escape unpunished. Whew.
Yeah, man.
Verse 20. But the mother was marvelous above all, and worthy of honorable memory. For when she saw her 7 sons slain with the space of one day, she bare it with a good courage, because of the hope that she had in the Most High. Yea, she exhorted every one of them in her own language, filled with courageous spirit, and stirring up her womanish thoughts with a manly stomach, she said unto them, I cannot tell how ye came into my womb, for I neither gave you breath nor life, neither was it I that formed the members of every one of you, but doubtless the Creator of the world, who formed the generation of man, and found out the beginning of all things, will also of his own mercy give you breath and life again, as ye now regard not your own selves for his law's sake.
Mm-hmm.
Now Antiochus, thinking himself despised, and suspecting it to be a reproachful speech, whilst the young was yet alive, did not only exhort him by words, but also assured him with oaths, that he would make him both a rich and a happy man if he would turn from the laws of his fathers, and that also he would take him for his friend and trust him with affairs.
So look, this dude, he doing it. He can't believe that these guys are reverencing something over him. He's the king, and he's like, man, I'll make you my right hand man. I'm gonna give you these things. You can sit up here and have a seat with me. He's trying to give him any and everything he can to have him betray the father and forsake his laws, right? But what did his mother just go into, saying, I don't understand, you the God of all. You the one who created the whole function of us and me carrying these children. I can't figure out how all that worked, but I know you're going to do it again. You're going to give my children life after this. Like, we standing strong because we know you are faithful and your word is just and faithful. So here he is after, she bringing this. He's like, yo, all right, I got to get one of these dudes. You can have, man, you can be my buddy. Like, he like, you can partake in everything, right? Go ahead.
Verse 25. But when the young man would in no case hearken unto him, the king called his mother and exhorted her that she would counsel the young man to save his life.
He's desperate at this point. Come and tell him, save your son. They're like, yo, you the one that's lacking understanding, man. Go ahead.
Verse 26. And when he had exhorted her with many words, she promised him that she would counsel her son. But she, bowing herself toward him, laughing the cruel tyrant to scorn, spake in her country language on this manner. O my son, have pity upon me that bare thee 9 months in my womb, and gave thee suck 3 years, and nourished thee, and brought thee up into this age, and endured the troubles of education. I beseech thee, my son, look upon the heaven and the earth, and all that is therein, and consider that the Most High made them of things that were not, and was so mankind made likewise. Fear not this tormentor, but being worthy of thy brethren, take thy death, that I may receive thee again in mercy with thy brethren.
Man.
While she was yet speaking these words, the young man said, Whom wait ye for? I will not obey the king's commandment, but I will obey the commandment of the law that was given unto our fathers by Moses.
Man, they was strong, man. She telling her son, like, go to your death. You know what I mean? And he's like, he almost cut her off, like, yo, mom, I'm cool. Whom ye wait for? I will not obey the king command. Like, yeah, don't worry about it. Go ahead.
Verse 31. And thou that hast been the author of all mischief against the Hebrews shall not escape the hands of the Most High. For we suffer because of our sins. And thou, the living Lord, be angry with us a little while for our chastening and correction. Yet shall he be at one again with his servants. But thou, O godless man, and of all other most wicked, be not lifted up without a cause, nor puffed up with uncertain hopes, lifting up thy hand against the servants of the Most High. For thou hast not yet escaped the judgment of Almighty God, who seeth all things. For our brethren, who now have suffered a short pain, are dead under the Most High's covenant of everlasting life. But thou, through the judgment of the Most High, shall receive just punishment for thy pride.
Man, how many sleepless nights did this king have after this?
Even more so now that he's gone in torment.
Man, ooh.
Yeah.
These dudes are staring death in the face like, yo, let me run this down for you before I get up out of here. Let me tell you what's about to happen.
Yeah.
Ooh, boy, this man probably didn't sleep for months. Go ahead.
Verse 37. But I, as my brethren, offer up my body and life for the laws of our fathers, beseeching the Most High that he would speedily be mercifully unto our nation, and that thou by torments and plagues mayest confess that he alone is the Most High, and that in me and my brethren the wrath of the Almighty, which is justly brought upon all our nation, may cease. Then the king, being in a rage, handled him worse than all the rest, and took it grievously that he was mocked. So this man died undefiled, and put his whole trust in the Most High. Last of all, after the sons, the mother died. Let this be enough now to have spoken concerning the idolatrous feast and the extreme tortures.
Man. Yeah, so let that be, something for us to, draw strength on as we, look at the times that we're in. It's, understanding. We have to know and understand. Not that most of us would have to deal with something that would come to this level, but with something we can draw strength on and faith. And knowing and just remembering that whatever that is going on and whatever may come about, we have to remember and understand that the Most High is faithful. This is a temporary time, and that the Most High has an everlasting kingdom and life and crowns to hand out. Like we got to know that, and we have to know, that's that faith that allows us to stand strong in his word as we move forward. So bravery in the midst of torture and death, all to uphold the commandments of the Most High. Yet today, you can't separate our people from a pork chop at gunpoint. For real. We have some big shoes to fill. That's why it's important to remember these holy days and the events surrounding them so that we can break the programming given by Satan. Here's an example of Christ keeping the feast on the holy day and the wickedness amongst us operating with the same foolish, persecuting spirit, even on the holy day, right? So we're going to read of an account where, it lets us know as well that Christ not only kept all the holy days, but this passage in particular is of Christ on the Feast of Dedication itself. We're going to go to the book of John. The book of John. And that strength is something we grow in, It's something that we grow in. But as we learn and understand and gain that experience and that time and gain that trust in the Most High, as we deal with Him and allow Him to find our way versus us finding our way, we're able to solidify that faith and understanding and knowing that the Most High is there and with us, drawing on these things, of past times for strength. So we're in the book of John, chapter 10, and we'll start at the 22nd verse.
St. John, chapter 10, verse 22. And it was at Jerusalem, the feast of the dedication, and it was winter. And Yeshua walked in the temple in Solomon's porch. Then came the Jews round about him, and said unto him, How long dost thou make us to doubt? If thou be the Christ, tell us plainly.
Mm-hmm.
Verse 25. Yeshua answered them, I told you, and ye believe not. The works that I do in my Father's name, they bear witness of me.
He's like, I told you don't believe, and you believe not. And he's like, I'm doing these works right before your eyes in His name. That bears witness to who I am. Go ahead.
Verse 26. But ye believe not, because ye are not of my sheep. As I said unto you, my sheep hear my voice, and I know them, and they follow me.
Mm-hmm.
And I give unto them eternal life, and they shall never perish, neither shall any man pluck them out of my hand. My Father which gave them me is greater than all, and no man is able to pluck them out of my Father's hand. I and my Father are one.
Mm-hmm.
Then the Jews took up stones again to stone him. Yeshua answered them, Many good works have I showed you from my Father. For which of those works do you stone me?
Mm-hmm. He's like, so what did I do? I'm showing you good works in the name of my Father. So for what work are you guys planning to stone me for? What is the cause? What's the reason? Go ahead.
Verse 33. The Jews answered him, saying, For a good work we stone thee not, but for blasphemy, and because that thou, being a man, makest thyself God. Yeshua answered them, It is not written, Yeshua answered them, Is it not written in your law, I said ye are gods?
Mm-hmm.
If he called them gods unto whom the word of the Most High came, and the scriptures cannot be broken, say ye of him, whom the Father has sanctified, and sent into the world, Thou blasphemest, because I said I am the Son of the Most High. If I do not the work of my Father, believe me not.
Right.
But if I do, though ye believe not me, believe the works,
Mm-hmm.
that ye may know and believe that the Father is in me,
Mm-hmm.
and I am in him.
Right.
Therefore they sought again to take him, but he escaped out of their hands, and went away again beyond Jordan into the place where John at first baptized, and there he abode. And many restored unto him, and said, John did no miracle, but all things that John spake of this man were true. And many believed on him there.
So that's an account again of Christ and dealing with and concerning and our people dealing with the Feast of Dedications as well. Let's get Acts. Just got a couple more scriptures. We've already read through the history and the actual accounts concerning the Feast of Dedication. We'll go to Acts 7 and 48. Just to bring, some, what's the word? direction for us concerning ourselves individually and as a body and as a unit as well. When we look at the Feast of Dedications today, right? Acts 7:48.
Acts chapter 7, verse 48. Howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, as saith the prophet. Heaven is my throne, and earth is my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Most High?
Verse 48, howbeit the Most High dwelleth not in temples made with hands, right? Let's get 1 Corinthians 3. Heaven is my throne and earth my footstool. What house will ye build me, saith the Lord, or what is the place of my rest? He's like, I'm the Most High. Like I'm not, contained to, a space or anything built with your hands, right? 1 Corinthians 3:16.
1 Corinthians chapter 3, verse 16. Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth within you?
Know ye not that ye, you, we, I, us, we are the temples of the Most High, right? So as we look at the Feast of Dedications and the rededication and the dedication of the temple, this is an opportunity for us to take some time, and this doesn't remove the importance of what we just read in history and what we discussed concerning having the opportunity to understand who we are, who the Most High is to us, what our culture is, who we are as a people, what the Most High gave us. That's all intact, okay? But understand, we are now the temple of the Most High. And as we look to observe the Feast of Dedications, it's the dedicating, rededicating, or the dedicating of ourselves, right? Ourselves as that temple, dedicating ourselves back to the Most High, and ourselves being that living sacrifice to the Most High, right? Where you read 16, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, read 17. Read 16 is what again, and 17.
Know ye not that ye are the temple of the Most High, and that the Spirit of the Most High dwelleth in you? If any man defile the temple of the Most High, him shall the Most High destroy. For the temple of the Most High is holy, which temple ye are.
So we are that temple, and we need not to defile that temple or be destroyed. This is that rededication. Just like how we looked at them coming back in and saying, man, look at this place. What's been going on in here? That's that reflection of ourselves. Like, ain't nobody had the weed eater out in a minute. Everything's growing up. Like, it's all kind of buffoonery. Let's wipe this all away and rededicate this to the Most High. We are that temple, not to be defiled. If any man defile the temple of the Most High, after we just read, we are that temple, him shall the Most High destroy. For the temple of the Most High is holy, which temple ye are. Right? Let's get one more verse, 1 Corinthians 6. And 19. 1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19.
1 Corinthians chapter 6, verse 19. What? Know ye not that your body is the temple of the Holy Spirit, which is in you, which ye have of the Most High, and ye are not your own?
We are not our own.
For ye are bought with a price.
Mm-hmm.
Therefore, glorify the Most High in your body.
In that temple, right? Glorify him in his temple. Go ahead.
Glorify the Most High in your body and in your spirit, which are the Most High's.
Mm-hmm. So, You know, I just kind of wanted to end things and round things up with that as we kind of went over this beautiful lesson and reflecting on our history, understanding what happened, you know, in the past, in times past, the strength that we have in our Father through, you know, our obedience and allegiance to the Father and obedience to His law. You know, where we saw the brothers who stood strong to the law, to the death. You know, and understanding who we are and that the culture that we come from, and our strength being in Him, and knowing that we are a chosen people, where the Most High deals with us. Like that's something to not to just take for granted, to remember. It don't have to be that way. Like, you know, that's where they were like, yo, that was the importance to them. Like, hey, let's, you know, in remembrance and understanding that we actually have the opportunity to deal with the Father this way. It's not for us to take for granted. That's that dedication, that rededication, that cleansing of the temple and rededication of ourselves. You know, so that's kind of the mind state and the spirit we want to look to be in and reflect upon over the next, you know, 8 days. You know what I mean? So as we come back together next Sabbath, these are things that we've been chewing on and meditating on and praying on and thinking on. And, you know, so that even more so when we come together to, you know, have a feast, the Most High can look down upon it that much grander. You know, because, you know, it's not just about us having a good time. That's cool. But, you know, we want to make sure we dealing with obedience to the Father so that He can truly, like we read when we were reading in the Josephus, that how it pleased the Most High. You know, it didn't just please Him because they had fun, you know, but they giving it up for me. Like they dealing with some obedience. There's something that comes with it. You know, faith without works. I mean, we have to put that effort forth. So that's what we should be looking at and thinking on and meditating on over the next 8 days. You know, sweeping clean our temples, giving the Most High that place to reside that's not defiled. You know, so to never take for granted the blessings to be able to celebrate these days. Like we can't take this for granted. You know, because we know as we read and even in our history that we can reflect upon it, it wasn't always an opportunity to get to the Most High, to have this understanding, to go to Him. So with that, you know, that's going to kind of wrap up our lesson. I hope it was useful and it will, you know, praise the Father. And with that, we'll say shalom.
A lot.